on, I guess, free will and determinism. Very interesting subject. I think I'm just going to talk about my position on free will and determinism and why I think a libertarian is unjustified. Now, when I say libertarian, I don't mean politically a libertarian, philosophically a libertarian. A libertarian philosophically is believes in basically an absolute sense of free will, and when I refer to libertarian, I'm talking about someone who believes in an absolute sense of free will. A compatibilist is sort of a middle ground, believes in some sense of free will, but really a limited sense of free will, depending on how you define it. I'm going to define free will for the time being as the ability to make choices with limits. And the difference between normal free will is the one that is limited, is the absolute free will, which is the sense that nothing is limited and you can make any option and there's nothing constraining your options. So a libertarian believes in this absolute sense of free will. Compatibilists believe in a limited sense of free will, but they also accept determinism. Libertarians, as I recall, can be deterministic. Non-determinism is another thing that plays a role in there. It's a little confusing. I don't really know much about non-determinism because it seems so self-apparent that determinism is definitely there. I mean, it seems so simple. I mean, yeah, I'll get into that. And then there's, of course, a hard deterministic position or deterministic position, and that usually, a hard deterministic position usually accepts that there is no real sense of free will, and yeah. So, libertarians, absolute sense, almost always are using free will as justification for God. I wouldn't say always, but I've never met a libertarian who wasn't also pretty fervently religious. Even on the internet, I've never really met any. Absolute sense of free will doesn't make any sense to me, because if you think about it, why do you make decisions you do? Is it completely arbitrary what you're feeling? I mean, if you're feeling sad and you're pissed at your, friend, is that going to influence your decisions you make in front of them? I mean, isn't these deterministic factors going to influence you to do something? For instance, if you were hunting, I don't like hunting, but let's just say you're hunting, and a rabbit, comes into view between you and a deer. And if you shoot the bullet, you'll probably kill the rabbit. You may kill a deer if it pierces through. But the point is you have the choice now to either fire or not fire, or, move the scope away. But whatever you do is going to be influenced. Maybe you're like me and you're a vegetarian and you have a lot of empathy for animals and you don't want to fire and you don't. But you did that because you have a love for animals, because of reasoning. There were good reasons for what you did. Whereas, let's just say you just like hunting, it's a traditional thing, it doesn't bother you, you live on a farm, I don't know what it is, why someone would want to hunt, maybe you just like the thrill. Anyways, you do fire, you kill the rabbit, and you get the deer too. But you had good reason for either thing you did. There was good reason. If there is good reason, can there be absolute sense of free will? Because these reasons define everything that we make, every decision we make. Every decision we make has reasoning behind it, does it not? I mean, maybe you don't know the reasoning, but isn't it still there? I mean, I suppose I am sort of presuming there is good reason for everything we do, but I don't understand how humans could possibly do something they don't have good reasoning to do. Is that possible? I mean, supposedly they look back in the future and they say, oh, that was such a stupid reason for doing that. But if you were in their shoes right when they did it, let's say they murdered someone, if you were there and you knew everything they knew, you had the same experiences, same beliefs, everything, you were them for 5 seconds when they murdered someone, you would have done the same thing, right? I mean, how could you possibly have not? Because all influencing factors would have been there. And it wouldn't have been you, really. It would have been you watching from the driver's seat. And that's kind of the point. The deterministic factors are what made him do what he did. Furthermore, if that's the case, if deterministic factors dictate our decisions, then we are limited in senses. For instance, let's say I'm going to go to school. I can take the bus or I can walk. But I, live in a very deserty area, let's just say, and, There's no water around, but I decide I'm going to swim there because I have an absolute sense of free will. I can do anything I want, make any decision I like. I can't swim there. It's impossible. There's no water. There's nothing, no liquid to swim through. I'm going to say I'm going to fly there, but there's no airports, and I can't physically just fly. So I'm limited by deterministic factors. Deterministic factors are very wide. It's basically everything, internal factors and external factors, which you can make differentiation. But essentially everything's from external factors because essentially you were created through your environment one way or another. So my point being is that you are limited by certain things. You definitely have deterministic factors. Claims I hear from certain theists say that there's some variance in the brain, somewhere this variance that makes our decisions not 100% one way or the other. I believe this is completely unjustified because there's no evidence of variance in our brain. I have very little, I've never seen any evidence to believe that there is something in our brain that gives us a 50-50 chance to do something. Let's just say you come up to this street and there's a wall in front of you and there's two ways to go, right or left. And there's no difference. You can't tell any difference. You have no sense of direction. You're just sort of going. You have no way to make a decision. It's 50-50. If it was 100% 50-50, how could you choose one? How could you possibly choose one? You just keep walking, you look in the other way, and it's exactly the same. I think you would honestly be indecisive until you found some arbitrary means to find a way to go one way or the other. And that's kind of how I look at it. There would be no way to distinguish the two unless there was something that influenced you. Let's just say you're right-handed, so you say, well, I don't want to go right then. I'm going to go left. You go against what your gut feeling. Or maybe you say, I'm right-handed, therefore I'm going to go right. But you had some influencing factor to determine where you're going to go. That's the entire point in determinism. Everything we do has some I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. There's something that leads us to do whatever we do. I just said do. Lovely. So I don't see how you could possibly have the absolute sense of free will. The absolute sense of free will, if you had it, would give you the ability to choose between good and evil. But I don't feel it's even possible because everything we do is influenced by factors. God created our environment. Therefore, everything our environment does to us, everything we feel in our environment, is determined, which determines us. And because it determines us, determines our internal factors, everything is determined. As far as I can possibly tell, I see no variance in the human brain. I see no reason to believe that there is any variance in the human brain, unless anyone can give me some evidence that there is variance in the human brain. Therefore, I come to the conclusion that everything is determined, and if God was behind it, as some theists believe, their position is completely unjustified that they would say, I'm going to hell. How can I possibly go to hell if I was determined to do exactly what I did? How could I possibly absolutely guilty of anything? How could I possibly absolutely guilty of anything if God influenced me, put all the things, stones in place, with his omniscience, that knowing this would lead me to where I was? I mean, if God really wanted to, he can make sure we all go to heaven. We all have all the evidence we need to believe in God. We all just automatically believe in God because it's so self-apparent. Why didn't he? I ask this question honestly. Why didn't God do that? It doesn't make any sense if we have an absolute sense of free will. That's the conclusion I come to. If you have any criticism, I'd like to hear it. See ya.